Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin, broadcasting from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com. A new show is posted every Thursday around 5 p.m. Pacific time. New shows appear also on YouTube and numerous other media. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area. If you have questions or comments, you can send an email to me at bob@firedupmail.com. That's bob@firedupmail.com. Or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. To repeat that for the radio guys, it's 702 oops, I wrote it wrong on the second time on the outline. It's 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, we'll respond by email, text, or telephone. If there's a question for our guest, which there won't be tonight because I'm flying solo tonight. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, rarely covered by any mainstream media. So we always present a few for our listeners' education. Most are good shootings, some are questionable, sometimes they're just plain wrong, but they're all educational for firearms owners. Individual incidents are generally adjudicated under local law. Advice given here then might not apply to listeners in different jurisdictions, and the incidents are as reported, except generally the names of the participants, rather than the attorneys and the police and so forth, are omitted. This show is going to be a little bit different. I'm doing one single story tonight. This is, as reported in the Las Vegas Review-Journal, on the 10th of this month. We're making this show, I don't even know what the day is, well, on the 18th, I believe. The Las Vegas Review-Journal, I need to plug for 1 second. It is our conservative local newspaper. You can get a subscription if you just go on to LasVegasReviewJournal.com, and they have an online version which you can sign up for, and it'll come to your phone, whenever you want to look at it or put a shortcut or something. And you get the real information about Las Vegas instead of all the fake hoopla that is running around about our town, my town. Anyway, this story is about a case that is going on here in federal court, which means the decisions in this one would apply to everybody inside the United States for jurisdiction, as it's a federal court case. The Review-Journal, as I said, reported on 7/10 of 19, the man who sold ammo to the Las Vegas shooter will have a jury trial. The Route 91 attack, if you recall that, it's a while now, killed 58 concert goers and injured hundreds more. They're still getting claims from that are secondary claims. The gunman opened fire on a crowd of 22,000 people at this venue we had for stage shows and so forth, outdoor venue, from the Mandalay Bay Hotel, which is across the street, and eventually fatally shot himself. Inside his suite, the investigators found ammunition that the defendants in this case had sold to the shooter, loaded, and the rifles were loaded with rounds and magazines. And they also found inside of his hotel room an Amazon shipping box listed to the defendant's address. This case is about the guy who sold some of the ammunition that was used by this mass shooter. The background on this is, I didn't leave on the outline, but what happened was when he was originally interviewed almost immediately, because There were a shipping crate with his address on it that he'd shipped it to the ammunition dealer in Las Vegas. And he had, later they found his fingerprints on some of the cartridges where they were loaded into magazines, had his thumbprints on the top of it, and on the thumbprints on, and fingerprints on some of the magazines. So even though he wasn't there at the time, he was interviewed by the police, of course, immediately by ATF and feds and everybody else who was chasing this down. And he made a crucial tactical error in his defense. I'm not defending the guy, certainly not the shooter and not this guy, because this guy's going to end up going away for a long time, in my opinion. But he got an attorney, had an attorney there that was not a gun expert attorney, and he basically did an interview with the government and appeared on some news shows saying that, you know, he made the ammunition legally and shipped it to Nevada, and he didn't actually even go to Nevada, and so forth and so on. And his attorney that he got from, I don't know where, a local attorney there somewhere, thought that was perfectly fine because his defense was based on the fact that I didn't shoot anybody, I just sold the ammunition. What he didn't realize, that was an admission of a violation of federal law. You may ship, at the time, you may ship ammunition interstate. That's changing around now in California and so forth, as of this week. But tracer ammunition and armor-piercing ammunition is a control item that cannot be manufactured by somebody not licensed for that. And he and his attorney, the defendant and his attorney, didn't realize that. So they basically confessed to the media to violating several federal laws. Having an attorney on your side who, again, I'm not defending this guy, but having an attorney on your side that knows something about gun laws, or not doing interviews until you talk to an attorney that knows something about gun laws, was the error that compounded into this federal case. Anyway, the story goes on. This is, again, from the Review-Journal. Federal investigators interviewed the defendant shortly after the attack, and prosecutors later charged him in connection with the sale. The trial is set to start in Las Vegas in August. We are taping this in mid-July. So in about a month, he's going on trial in federal court. And this story is to talk to you about some of the shenanigans that happen in real cases. U.S. District Judge James Mahan made a ruling Wednesday in the Las Vegas hearing after arguments from the defendant's lawyer and federal prosecutors. It marked the first time he has appeared in federal court in Las Vegas. His wife listened from the gallery, quietly petting her service dog throughout the hearing. Obviously, his wife is really distraught over this because she didn't realize either this was a violation of law. In June, the defendant requested a bench trial, fearing that bias from jurors would be prejudicial because of the nature of the shooting. And the jury may be sequestered and told not to discuss the case and this, and that, and the other thing, but everybody in that jury is going to know in the first 5 seconds that this is the guy that gave the ammunition to the mass shooter, sold him the ammunition. And the concern was he wanted a judge trial on the basis of the law because the jury would still know that this guy played a part in this horrible mass shooting. Anyway, the judge recommended to the guy who's going to be the trial judge that request be denied. Though the trial, this is the trial judge, although the trial will present challenges, the trial judge will ensure the defendant an impartial trial. This is U.S. Magistrate Judge Cam Fehrenbach wrote in a report to the judge who's actually going to hear the case. The defendant was concerned that his connection to the Route 91 shooting in Las Vegas would have a prejudicial effect on jurors, according to the court records. As we know, this is again from the RJ story, he's accused of selling reloaded rounds to the gunman ahead of the October 1st, 17 shooting. He faces one count of manufacturing weapons without a license. That's for some pieces and parts. Unlike a judge, the juror may simply be unable to set aside their passion and prejudices in trying to render a fair trial because of what this case is, the defense attorney Mark Victor wrote in his pleadings. In court Wednesday, he argued that the U.S. attorney is currently experiencing an epidemic. The U.S. is currently experiencing an epidemic of gun violence. We'd all agree, and that has created a highly charged and divisive political climate. He stressed that his client's connection to the deadliest mass shooting ever in history of our country may cloud the juror's judgment. Well, of course it will. He also argued that the type of ammunition his client sold to the gunman, armor-piercing and tracer rounds, could be considered inflammatory to people who are not familiar with weapons. Obviously, and you're not going to get a jury full of gun nuts, obviously. Anyway, he goes on, there's a very real possibility that they might hold the type of ammunition against my client. This is the defense lawyer talking again. The judge said he understood the position and admitted that while discussing the case in chambers, he himself considered excluding any jurors who attended the Route 91 festival. Then he said, but I don't think we can exclude people like that, the whole class of people, because you're talking about the attendees, their friends, everybody that knew them, the victims' extended families, and so forth. Mann presented prosecutors and the defense attorney with two questions he thought he brought up to weed out jurors that the jury bias that the defense is worried about. Just a bit here, I was going to kind of skip over this, but he wanted to ask the jury, did any of you or your close friends or relatives attend the October 1 Route 91 Harvest Music Festival? Would you be able to serve a totally fair and impartial jury in the case involving the defendant who allegedly manufactured some or all of the ammunition the shooter used that night? Mann said the questions were only suggestions and clarified that prosecutors and Haig's attorney are welcome to edit or add to them. He recommended that any juror questionnaire remain short and to the point, obviously. The heart of the jury selection process is right there, the judge said, noting that he did not care if the questions revealed the gist of the case because potential jurors will find out sooner or later. Anyway, obviously they're going to know from the press coverage what jury they're on. Lawyers from both sides of the case agreed to the idea of a juror questionnaire about Route 91. Although the questions weren't finalized Wednesday, still, the defendant's attorney said he and his client intend to explore the possibilities of a statewide jury or moving the trial to Reno. The judge said he'd prefer to keep it in the community. The defense tried to change the circumstances of his court case, but the bias concerns to minimize what's going on. And the defendant wanted to be tried in Arizona instead of Nevada, but the incident obviously took place here. It would make it hard to find an impartial jury. So Mann denied all that request. They went over and over how we're going to move this to Reno and back and forth. Prosecutors would not be allowed to mention the Route 91 attack in order to minimize the prejudice to the jury. He also asked that his case be dismissed, arguing that the state he's accused of violating is unconstitutionally vague. Nice idea. It's not. The judge denied that motion. Then he changed and asked for his right to waive his right to a jury trial, which the judge had denied on Wednesday. The judge issued a separate ruling Monday granting two requests from the prosecutors that the defense team did not oppose: exclusion of any argument based on the Second Amendment and exclusion of any argument as to why the defendant was being prosecuted in the first place, which were designed to attack the government's motivation. There is clearly, in my opinion, there's no violation of this guy's Second Amendment rights. He's allowed to manufacture ammunition, but they do control the interstate shipment of tracers and so forth and so on. So those are going to fall very hollow in the reality of this. The judge also denied a request from the defendant that asked that what type of ammunition he sold to the gunman would not be mentioned during the trial. In the same ruling, Mahon denied a request from the defense to exclude any testimony related to tool mark evidence from Haig's ammunition reloading press, although the judge agreed that testimony could not be described as a scientific certainty. Part of it is from loading dies and so forth that showed marks on the shell casings, and those, in the opinion of the experts that have looked at them, are not definitive enough. The scrape marks and tool marks don't always match enough for the expert to go on with a scientific certainty and say this is what happened. So we have this giant trial, and the lesson here is for anybody charged with a crime is all this rigmarole that I just read to you is all what's going on in a real case. They are very complicated. Obviously, he could argue he didn't violate state law, but if he violated federal law, they can do the trial about whenever they want, wherever they want, and they're going to have it in Las Vegas because that's what happened. And the judge ruled that it will be held in Las Vegas. I think we've about run out of arguments and I want this and I want that. In my opinion, wherever the trial is held, whether he wanted it held in Reno for a while and so forth, I don't think it's going to make a bit of difference, or held in Arizona, which wouldn't make a big difference to anyone either. So that's where we are. I want you to be where you can check out let me go back a minute. A lot of this was commentary based on my experience in expert witnessing in cases. And the arguments that are being made aren't going to work in this case. They shouldn't work in this case. He's entitled to a fair trial. He will get a fair trial. His attorneys that are coming in are very well known. They're expert. These are high-class lawyers. They are not, this isn't somebody who started practicing law last week. These are people with years and years of experience, and they know the federal law. And as I said before, the difficulty here, one, is his own admission that he committed the crime because the attorney that was advising him didn't know it was a crime. And now, it's anybody's guess. He did not actually participate in the shooting. We know that. And that apparently will be the defense. And the question is, will the jury be so upset as to the result of what he did? You make up the argument that, well, he could have bought the ammunition from someone else. He could have bought it in Arizona and brought it to Nevada himself, et cetera, et cetera. There's some legal issues on both sides as to how responsible he is, but we have this horrendous case that what's going to happen is, folks, they're going to apply the law. It may not be fair. That's not what courts do. They apply the law to the circumstances of the case. Now, I'm done. I want you to check out our recent shows at firedupwithboberwin.com. We've got a number of shows up there, 18 or 19 or 20. The older shows are being added. If you hook into the old website that we're trying to mesh the shows with, you will find a whole slug of shows going back 5 years now. It's the commercials that keep us on the air. I didn't do that tonight. I didn't recognize our supporters, and I probably should. Can we get that up, Rick? Is that possible? Our slides? Maybe not. Oh, there we go. These businesses are associates with us. They're our supporters. And I would ask you, if you're in the local area here in Las Vegas, to go see them when you have a problem. The first is CCS Gunsmithing. They're at 702-365-1732. 702-365-1732 for you radio guys. They're on Rainbow Boulevard here in Las Vegas. Chris Eifelt is the chief gunsmith and great guy, does great repair work, and I'd recommend him. You want to buy or sell a gun, he's the guy. My friend Jerry Creed, his card lists that on the slide we're looking at, he does estate planning and so forth. What Jerry does is just also gun trusts. If you're trying to leave your firearms, particularly anything that's a Class 3 firearm, to your heirs, you need to talk to Jerry. He can be found at area code 702-806-7777. Again, 702-806-7777. Give Jerry a call. Great guy. We have my normal lawyer, Don Green, is normally the standard guest on this show. I kind of decided to leave him off the show of my own course here because this is really a story about how lawyers mucked up a case, and it's very puts attorneys that would appear in a really awkward position. So we were having a little timing problems, and it was easier. Anyway, Don Green is not on the show tonight. However, he is an expert on gun litigation cases, probably the guy this guy should have called in the first place. You can reach him at 702-409-8239. That's 702-409-8239. Don Green, attorney at law, gun guy. Maggie Mordaunt, my favorite lady instructor. You can find her at www.hpptraining.com. You need only to look up, just search CCW Maggie, M-A-G-G-I-E. You will find her all over the internet. Her and her husband now, great instructors. I can't say enough about her. Training counselor and all that. Wonderful lady, wonderful teacher. Particularly if you're a lady wanting to learn how to shoot, get a hold of Maggie. She runs the Well-Armed Women here and so forth and so on. Lots of good stuff. CCW Maggie, easy to find. And my favorite Mexican restaurant, you will find me there later this evening. That wasn't an invitation. They are on Flamingo and Decatur here in Las Vegas. You can reach them at 702-227-9100. The owner is an arch-conservative guy. The food is great. They do all sorts of things for meetings, and they have private rooms and banquet service and so forth and so on. And now they're doing deliveries. They have a van out there that drives food. So you can call Ricardo's, 702-227-9100, and get their food delivered. How's that? Okay. That will do it for our show this evening. I appreciate you tuning in to Fired Up. And I forgot, there is on my screen. It is on my outline. I'm just not looking at it. I'm looking at my picture here on the monitor. We have a line of hats and shirts and books and so forth we use to put off some of the costs of putting this show on. You can find that stuff at firedupwithboberwinstore.com. There's a link to it on our regular website. But for the merchandise, it's firedupwithboberwinstore.com. Buy a trinket, buy a book, and I'd appreciate that very much. Capitalism wins, right? Thank you so much for watching Fired Up. We will see you all again next week. Thanks for looking in.